All right, we're going to get started. This is a webinar on the Paraeducator Certificate Program. Next slide, please. If you're having any technical challenges, please visit support.zoom.us. I also want to note that this webinar is being recorded. Next slide. All right, so the chat function for this webinar is disabled, but you can still submit a question using the question and answer function. At the bottom of your screen is a question and answer button. After clicking it, you may submit your question here. We will be answering questions 3 times throughout the presentation, and we anticipate a lot of time at the very end to answer a lot of questions. Next slide. So at the end of the presentation, we will be asking 2 specific questions. The first being, what do you believe will be your greatest challenge to implementing the fundamental course of study next year? And the second question, what could we do to support you in the implementation of the program next school year? So throughout the presentation, please be ready to answer those questions from us using the question and answer function. So be thinking about that. So I am Zoe Hammis-Hefty. I'm a program specialist for the Paraeducator Board. I also have my 2 colleagues here today. Janelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Janelle Adams, and I am a consultant to the Professional Educator Standards Board, and I have been with the Paraeducator project since 2014, and very happy to be here today to unveil our new webinar. Thank you.
And hello, my name is Jack Busby. I'm the Associate Director for the Paraeducator Board, and I've been around since 2017. And it's great to have the opportunity to speak with you all today and to really dive down into some updates and also, as Janelle said, introduce the curriculum to you all. So to go ahead and kick things off, today what we're going to be talking about is an update on the Paraeducator Certificate Program funding, program requirements for the 2020-21 school year, different online learning opportunities that are available, and also the fundamental course study curriculum. So along with doing those updates, we also really wanted to have the opportunity to speak with you all and also talk about what's been happening in the last few months because of COVID-19. We have come up with a couple different communication items over the last couple of months, and a lot of that has to do because of just the different events that have been happening. So we wanted to have this opportunity now to address those, talk to you a little bit about why certain communications have come out and where we stand currently to make sure that we're all in the same place. So to kick things off, at the close of the 2020 legislative session, the legislature had appropriated additional funding for the fundamental course study and removed some of the restrictions on when training for the fundamental course study must be completed. As an example of this, districts were not required to complete 2 days of training on the fundamental course study during the 2019-20 school year, but instead were required to have all training completed by the end of the 2021 school year. This provided districts with flexibility for when training days had to be met. To say that again, before the legislative session, districts were required to do 2 days of training for the current school year and then 2 days of training for the next school year. With the end of the session, they had said, you know what, we're not going to have any of these requirements of what days need to be met by which year. We're just going to say that by the end of the school year in 2020-21, the fundamental course study just needs to be completed. This allowed a lot of flexibility for districts to be able to determine the best approach to provide the training. It was also good timing because with COVID-19, there were a lot of school closures that were happening, and many districts were not sure at that time how they would be able to meet the different requirements, especially that 2-day requirement of training for the fundamental course of study. So that was at the close of the 20 legislative session, and then a few weeks after the close as well, that was how things were looking. But then the governor's veto on April 3rd of 2020 took place. And with the line item veto authority, he trimmed from the 2020 supplemental operating budget and the state's next 2-year budget. Close to 200 programs were affected by this veto, and this included the Paraeducator Certificate Program. The veto meant that the newly appropriated funds and rules by the legislature would not come to pass. And instead, the base appropriation of funding and the requirement that school districts must provide 2 days of training on the fundamental course study per year would be unchanged. So all that flexibility that we talked about, that would not actually come to pass because of the veto. So instead, districts had, basically instead, since it was not signed, school districts are required to maintain a 2 days per school year requirement on training of the fundamental course study. So 2 days this school year and 2 days next school year are the requirements that districts must provide to their paraeducators on the fundamental course study. So what is the current state of funding and the requirements? Well, the requirements we've talked about, 2 days this school year and 2 days next school year. And this is on the fundamental course study. What we have in front of you are the current budget allocations for the upcoming fiscal year, and then for the outlook budget for the fiscal years that will follow. So as we know, there is $12 million for the current school year that will come out in the next fiscal year. So the training that's taking place this school year will be reimbursed because of $12 million that will come out. It is anticipated, because it is currently in the outlook budget, that there will be $13 million to come out in fiscal year 22 to reimburse for training of the upcoming school year of 2021. And then there will be $1.4 million in fiscal year 23 that can be used to reimburse training on school year 21, 22. We do want to note that this is in the outlook budget, and because it is in the outlook budget, there is still the requirement that districts must provide training to their paraeducators. If this changes, then we will make sure to update the state with whatever comes out from the legislature. All right, so we have received a lot of questions on in-person training. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed it here. In order for districts to complete the training of the fundamental course of study to their paraeducators, 7 hours of in-person training must be completed in person. And this is 7 hours out of the full fundamental course of study, which is 28 hours of training. Districts have until September 1st, 2021 to complete this requirement for currently employed paraeducators. There is no requirement that 7 hours of in-person training must take place this school year, and that the requirement is that 7 hours must be completed for the current paraeducators who are receiving training by September 1st of 2021. And by in person, we are talking about face-to-face in the same room, and that this does not include Zoom or any other similar software. Now, this is the current rule. It is one that was put in there by the legislature. If, as we move forward through the summer and we have a better understanding of how schools may be opening for the next school year, this rule may be revisited. But at the current moment, the rule stands that 7 hours must be done in person, and that does not include Zoom to meet those 7 hours. All right, we're going to take a break here because that was a lot of information in a very quick time frame. So we just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to address some questions. We're going to limit it to 3 questions, which if you write in the Q&A box, Zoe will be able to say out loud for all of us to hear. If we do not respond to your question, we will try to address your question at the end of the presentation, where we will have another opportunity to just have a very open Q&A period. Zoe, could you, do we have any questions that have come in?
Yes, we do. So to be clear, in a previous webinar, we said 28 hours were required by the end of school year 2021. Has that changed, and can you be really clear about what the requirements for this school year and next school year are, please?
Actually, let's see, I will answer the first part, because the second part we actually talk about, and we actually have some language on the screen which might be helpful. So I'll hold off on the second part, but for the first part, every paraeducator that is receiving training right now on the required 14 hours of training will be required to complete the fundamental course of study by September 1st of 2021. So in the state, we currently have a little over 27,000 paraeducators who are receiving training on the fundamental course of study, that 2 days or 14-hour requirement. All 27,000 paraeducators, if they are employed next school year, will be required to complete the fundamental course of study by September 1st. Zoe, do we have a second question?
Yes, thank you, Jack. Is there any indication of funding to support the general certificate requirement for the next 5 years?
Great. Good question. Another one that we address later on in the presentation. At the moment, there is no funding for the general paraeducator certificate, either this school year or next, which means that there is no requirement for districts to provide training on the general paraeducator certificate to your paraeducators. Districts are more than welcome to provide training on the general paraeducator certificate and the other certificates as well, the ELL and the special ed and the advanced, but there is no funding and thus no reimbursement for that training.
Thank you, Jack, for the last question for this section. Previously, we had stated districts who provided more than 14 hours were able to get reimbursed. Can you talk to if districts provided a third or fourth day of training, if they're able to get reimbursed?
Thank you, Zoe. That's a really good question. And this goes back to the language that came out because of the close of the legislative session where there was that flexibility, and then the governor's veto. Because of the governor's veto, we are not able to reimburse for any more training that took place beyond the 2 days or 14 hours. The governor's veto took away the additional funding and that flexibility. So we have gone back to the 2 days that are required for this school year. If any less training took place, a district will not receive reimbursement for that training. In other words, it has to be a completed 14 hours in order to receive reimbursement for training that's provided to paraeducators. Any more training that was provided, there are no funds to be able to provide reimbursement. So 14 hours must be provided. If a paraeducator only completed less than that, we will not be able to reimburse. If a paraeducator completed more than that, we're only able to reimburse up to the 14 hours. Thank you, Zoe, for those questions. I think we are going to move forward. Again, if your question was not answered, we do have more information that we're sharing now, so hopefully it'll be answered then. And if not, we do have some time at the very end. And I think we have one more Q&A. Jenna?
Thanks, Jack. So right now, there is only the funding for the fundamental course of study and only to reimburse for the 2 days for this school year and next school years. But we do want to encourage districts that when you have your paraeducators that are available and you are paying them and you want to provide them with training options, you can certainly start using the actual program components to receive their general paraeducator by going on and doing 20 clock hours for the special ed subject matter certificate and the ELL subject matter certificate, which is also worth 20 clock hours. There won't be any reimbursement, but it perhaps could be a good way to fill the gap time. If your paraeducators are currently on your payroll but do not have any duties, this might be a way that you could assign them those specific hours to work on those self-contained. The special ed online subject matter training is all self-complete. There is no other instruction. They go online and they then work through their assignments and their quizzes, and then they can print out a certificate at the end, and that is for 20 clock hours. And the same thing with the ELL subject matter. And that will simultaneously, as they're working on their fundamental course of study, they can simultaneously also work on their general paraeducator certificate by working on their special ed, ELL, or other specific training that your district is providing. That will suffice and work towards their general paraeducator certificate. It's just an option. You're not going to get reimbursed for it, but it's certainly something to be thinking about. Next slide. So we do have the online training. Again, the Paraeducator What We Do Matters modules. Those are worth clock hours, 1 per module. And then, as I repeated in the slide before, the ELL Subject Matter Certificate is worth 20 clock hours. Special Ed Subject Matter Certificate, another 20 clock hours. And then we also have online training for teachers working with paraeducators and administrators working with paraeducators. So if you have your teachers or principals looking for an opportunity to do online learning, those are also available. And I believe those also have clock hours and are obtainable towards their own certificates. So again, the online courses are located on the PESB website. There's the link. And we do understand that sometimes there is a crash that happens with Moodle and the platform that OSPI is hosting these. So we do understand that there can be, especially when you get thousands of paraeducators working on the What We Do Matters modules, that can happen. However, there is an opportunity if you have a tech department that knows how to take them and put them on your own Moodle platform within your own district server, you can also do that. And if you wish to know what those options are, we can certainly help you. Work with Dennis Small at OSPI to be able to convert those so that you could put them on your own district server. Okay, next slide.
All right. Thank you, Janelle. And I'll just add to what you were just saying that if a district is able to host the online course, it's actually a really great opportunity. We've had several districts that have already taken that approach and have found a lot of success with it. Some benefits are, one, the server issues will be minimized or not even be existent on your own server. And also two, you might have a greater opportunity for tracking of the paraeducator completion of the modules. So overall, we think it's a great opportunity. If you would like to host it, please reach out to us. We have our email at the very end, which is paraboard@k12.wa.us, and we will be happy to help you go through that process. All right, for the deadlines for next school year. So we have, the way that this was written into law by the legislature, it kind of created 4 different cohorts. So there may be a lot of questions, and we will have an opportunity to address those questions right after these next 2 slides. The first cohort, shall we call it? Every paraeducator who is currently receiving training this school year, and also must complete that training 2 days this school year, districts must provide 2 days of training on the fundamental course of study by September 1st, 2021. This means that by September 1st, 2021, every paraeducator currently receiving 2 days of training will have completed the fundamental course of study by September 1st of 2021. 2 days this year, 2 days next school year. For paraeducators hired for the first time during the 2019-20 school year who did not receive training, and by this I want to clarify and say new hires who a district chose not to train. If there are paraeducators who received partial training, then this isn't a way to not continue training them. So this is to say that there was a rule by the legislature that districts are not required to train any new paraeducator hired this school year for the first time. So they were not previously hired and then returned. This is only for paraeducators who were hired for the first time this school year and who a district chose not to train that cohort. There were a few districts out there who chose not to do that. Those paraeducators must receive 2 days of training on the fundamental course study by September 1st of 2021. If at all possible, we do highly recommend that these paraeducators do receive all 4 days of training, as there will be funding. Now, if a district provided 7 hours of training to paraeducators and were not able to complete the 14 hours, this rule does not apply. So this is only for those who were hired for the first time this school year and who a district chose not to start the training of the fundamental course of study for them. For all new paraeducators who are hired for the first time next school year, there are new deadlines that were put in place by the legislature. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is for the upcoming school year, but these deadlines are currently written into law, so they will be following in the foreseeable future. And by that I mean, I'll be talking about September 1st, 2020, but if we wanted to extend this out to the future school years, you can consider that this is September 1st, 2021, 22, 23, 24, and so on. So in looking at just this upcoming school year 2020 and 21, paraeducators who are hired for the first time in the district to work in school year 2020-21, and they are hired on or before September 1st of 2020, a district must provide 2 days of training on the fundamental course of study by September 30th of 2020. So if you hire a paraeducator for the first time on September 1st, the first 2 days of the fundamental course of study must be provided to them by September 30th. If you hire a paraeducator after September 1st, so say you hire them on September 2nd or October 1st, December 30th, or January 2nd, March 1st, whenever. If it's after September 2nd, then when the first 2 days of training is provided to them is dependent on the size of the school district. Districts with 10,000 or more students, 2 days of the fundamental course study must be provided within 4 months of the date of hire, or by September 1st of 2021, whichever is sooner. Districts with fewer than 10,000 students, 2 days of the fundamental course study must be provided by September 1st of 2021. We understand this could be a challenge for districts as paraeducators are hired on a rolling basis in a traditional year. This is what is currently written to the legislature, and we are looking for feedback if you believe that these deadlines will be a hindrance or a challenge to meet. But as it currently stands, districts with 10,000 or more students, if you hire a paraeducator after September 1st, 2 days of the fundamental course study must be provided within 4 months of the date of hire. It doesn't matter if it's in the beginning of the school year or in the middle of the school year. So with that, we'll take another break to answer 3 questions. Zoe, whenever you're ready, we'll get to it.
Thanks, Jack. So the first question is in regards to the online course, Paraeducators, What We Do Matters. In January of this year, the Paraeducator Board approved adding social emotional learning standards to the fundamental course of study, and we added a 13th module to the online course. Does this 13th module mean that the online course is worth 13 hours or 12 hours of training?
Thank you, Zoe. The SEL module, if completed, is 1 hour of training. So yes, technically there are 13 hours. That is possible with the What We Do Matters. The SEL module will meet certain learning objectives that are throughout the fundamental course study units. Janelle, this is where I might need your help to remind me, but I think we have 3 or 4 units that are requesting SEL learning objectives. And in completing this 13th module, this SEL module, you will hit those 3 or 4 different learning objectives. Janelle, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And if you choose not to do the What We Do Matters modules to fulfill that extra clock hour, that's fine too, because the new fundamental course of study curriculum that we've put forth, and that you'll see that in our webinar, those SEL requirements are embedded within those within the new fundamental course of study units. So we will be showcasing those, but they're embedded. So if you haven't touched on SEL at all within your district, remember you can certainly use any of the SEL training that you currently provide to your district staff that will also meet the learning targets. But you can go to the our documents, and you'll see in the syllabus for the Fundamental Course of Study exactly where the Fundamental Course of Study SEL requirements have been added since January of 2020, because that's when they went into effect with the legislature.
Great. And just like our other modules, we do have in our crosswalk where the SEL learning objectives can be met. So we do recommend checking out our online crosswalk to help you in the facilitation of the training that you provide if you're relying on the online course What We Do Matters.
Thank you for that, Jack and Janelle. The next question is, what happens to paraeducators that do not complete the training as it is provided? Is there state level policy for that?
If a paraeducator does not complete the training, the state level policy that has been put in place is that it is a requirement of the district to make sure that they provide and ensure that the paraeducator completes 2 days of training on the Fundamental Course of Study. If a paraeducator is unable to provide the training or unable to meet the training requirements, and a district has tried in multiple different ways to be able to provide that training, would make up sessions or online, then it comes down to a district decision on what to do with the paraeducator. The way that the law has been written is that it is the responsibility of the district to make sure that that the paraeducator completes that training. We will be unable to reimburse any district who is unable to fully train a paraeducator to meet the 14 hours this school year. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Jack. The next question is in regards to the deadlines. So when we say by the date of hire, do we mean when the district has offered employment to the paraeducator, or the first day that the paraeducator is showing up on the job?
Okay. Janelle, I'm actually going to ask you if you could get this one.
Yes, it would be the first, not when you offer them employment, but it is their first day of work. So let's say, for instance, you offer a paraeducator a job in July 1st, and you know that they're going to be employed starting September 2nd or the first day that your school opens. It would be the first day that they report, okay, to work. That's when their contract actually starts. So if their contract actually starts, you give them 2 days before school starts. So let's say, for instance, August 30th, then that would be the day that you would call that their date of hire, is when they actually report to work.
Now, of course, every district is a little bit different, so we highly recommend checking with your partners, your district partners, to determine. But Janelle, thank you for the guidance there. If you are able to provide training earlier, then please do consider that when you are hiring new paraeducators. Zoe, I'm forgetting, what's that, 2 or 3?
That was 3.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on. We do have one more opportunity at the very end, and I know we have a lot of time to answer any questions that you may have. All right, Zoe.
All right, so this is for reimbursement. So in order to receive reimbursement, districts must submit I-Grants 918. And the hard deadline for that is September 1 of 2020. So districts must submit the final number of paraeducators that they anticipate to receive reimbursement for by September 1. We anticipate a reimbursement rate of $436 per paraeducator for 2 days of training. We can only reimburse for paraeducators that complete the full 14 hours for this requirement for this school year. The completion of a similar I-Grant is required to reimburse districts for next year's training. So it will be called I-Grants 918, and it will be a similar structure for next year.
Okay, great. Now we're going to showcase our new curriculum. And Zoe and I are going to do kind of a deep dive. We'll give you kind of an overview, and then we'll go and show you exactly what you can look forward to in your resource folder. But first, we want to thank all the districts in January who were very kind to send us all of their training that they had developed from last September to January. And once we took all of the PowerPoints and materials that the districts shared with us, we established a work group with various district leaders from their training and development. We had paraeducators, we had HR directors. This small, mighty team went through all of the PowerPoints and landed on the outline and the content for all of our fundamental courses study. So now we have completed all of our fundamental courses study units, which will be available for all districts to use should they choose. This is an option, it's not a mandated training, but it does cover all the fundamental course of study learning outcomes. It consistently has the same features across all the units, so it is easy for a facilitator to navigate through the facilitator's guide, and the paraeducators have consistent features throughout all of the PowerPoints. We did utilize the research-based content, so our models, our examples, our handouts, our videos are all research-based, and we then applied best practices from our district input. We included and expanded some of our resources so that those could be resources that paraeducator could go in and look, articles, different types of handouts that may help them in their job and their role as a paraeducator. We did showcase a variety of engaging videos. Some of them are have a sense of humor, and they're fun and they're engaging, and we believe that they do a nice job of giving some great examples of how paraeducators are working effectively in the classroom with their teachers. We also then provided interactive activities for a lot of group discussion. And just to make sure you know that this fundamental course of studying learning outcomes are for face-to-face training. This is not a substitute for online learning, because all of the activities were interactive with small groups, with opportunities for elbow buddy studies, and paraeducators really reflecting and learning from one another, and facilitation with their instructor. We do have a final reflection questions and then a summary of the learning for each of the fundamental course of study units. And paraeducators cannot complete this training without a facilitator. It is not, you can't just throw the PowerPoints at the paraeducators and say, hey, go through this slide deck. That is not how this training was put together. So we do now want to take you through one, and Zoe and I will kind of share with you a little bit about the highlights. And I want to definitely give a shout out to Zoe for putting together all the PowerPoints and helping us with this resource folder. So let's go into Fundamental Course of Study 7. So we keep everything in the Google Drive. So when you access that, you'll be able to go in and pick out whatever Fundamental Course of Study unit you wish. So we were going to do 7. So let's double click on 7. It's called Behavior Management Strategies and De-escalation Techniques. So as you see here, Zoe, why don't you take them through the facilitator's guide so that they know what the standards are in terms of the approach for every single unit.
Yeah, so as you saw in the folder, each unit has a presentation and a matching facilitator's guide that's meant to help a trainer that's going to be delivering the training. And then there's also a folder for any handouts that are used throughout the training. So if we go to the facilitator's guide, this is meant for people who are going to be delivering the training, and we explain the terms that we use in the guide, and we include scripts for the trainers, so ask, say, direct, things that they'll be saying to paraeducators. we have any notes that will be helpful about technology, maybe suggestions of how to break out groups for any of the small activities. And then, of course, we have any links to any helpful resources like the toolkit and the course outline. And then, as you see here on this slide, it says script, and then there's say, and this is something that the trainer would be saying to the paraeducators. So we really wanted to help out districts and the facilitators of the training. Jack, if you want to go to the presentation now. So the presentations all have a similar look and feel. These first two slides are to help, again, the trainer of the unit. And so it describes how many hours, helpful links, as we said, and then we really dive into the presentation. So this is any icons that we use. So we have an icon for when paraeducators are going to do an activity. We have an icon for when they're going to do some reflection on the learning. And then we have some suggested norms, and you'll see in the top corner there that red icon up there with the pencil. This means that we suggest that districts edit this slide. And so if districts have any norms that they want to encourage their paraeducators to take part in during the training, this icon up here suggests that if districts have that, they should edit this slide. And so then if you go down, one more, these are the standards of practice for each unit. And so these are the ones, the knowledge and skill competencies for FCS 07. And then these are the learning objectives. So after we go through the knowledge and skill competencies, we go through the learning objectives for each unit. And then we really dive into the content. So Janelle, do you want to talk a little bit about the content?
Yes, so how we've arranged the content is we usually start out with, we do a lot of model building. So let's go to slide number 11. So what we've done is based on the learning targets within each of the fundamental course of study syllabus, we've tried to take best practice and models that are easy to understand and take a paraeducator through those specific requirements. And then we have like a facilitated discussion. So let's go, so we present the model, and then we go to number 13, slide 13. So here's where we're talking about practical applications. So we try to do a lot of work with how to take the model and put it into practice. So we do a lot of sampling of how to do this, and then we have handouts that the facilitator can print and have paper copies so that the paraeducators can work in small groups to do some facilitated conversations. So let's scroll through. You can see 13, 14, 15, all of these slides are practical applications for a strategy on how to do that. And then we go down to the reflection time. So we'll ask them to reflect on what practices, what have they used, what's been successful. And then if we go back up, Jack, to let's go to the video embedding so we can show you. Okay, so here we go with an opportunity for positive behavior interventions and support. So we tried to pick out videos that give a great summary of what the content is, what the research is, what the intervention strategies are, and the why. So we try to have a guest speaker come in as a video to talk about that. And then we'll go in and do a reflective activity, or let's go to slide 28 and let's show how we do with a handout. So these are practical opportunities for strategies for de-escalation. So there are 18 of them. So if we go into a handout, Jack, and let's see, this one would be a handout so that you can see. So here we go. So this is a handout that would be copied and given to all of the paraeducators in your class. And then they would have an opportunity to go through the activity working with their small groups. And they would be able to go in and take a look at which of these activities have they practiced before. What more questions do they have about this strategy? Do they think it's something they could use in their classroom? Have they seen their teacher apply this? To be familiar with these 18 different strategies for de-escalation. So again, this is an opportunity for districts to go through and also customize. So let's say, for instance, you have your own de-escalation curriculum. So what you could do is go in and replace slide number 28 with what strategies you're using and what type of approach you're taking in your own research. So these are ways that you can then customize it to fit the curriculum and the approach. We worked with our district work team, and they selected kind of the best models and the best research and the best strategies that they felt would be universally applied, either from an OSPI support and handouts or from what they felt was being used mostly across the state. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an opportunity to see what the icons are saying about our activities and where the handouts are. And then
Janelle brings up a really great point about that this is not mandatory for districts to use. Districts are not required to now use this curriculum. Districts, this is an optional resource for districts to use because we overwhelmingly heard from districts a request for fundamental course of study curriculum. And also, as Janelle mentioned, I really want to stress that the expectation is that districts are going to download the facilitator's guide, download the presentation, and make it work for them. So we fully anticipate districts editing this to make sense for their mission and vision, for what sort of strategies they use and what techniques are within the district. And so when you see that pencil icon, that means that we suggest that districts go in and edit, and then this districts must customize big red banner that says we were unable to make this content up. It is really district specific. And so if you look, available resources in my school and community, this highlights up a slide that we can't create that. You have to come in and you have to edit this slide and you have to customize it to what resources are available in your school and your community. And so there are some things that districts are expected to come in and customize so that the presentation is most useful to their paraeducators.
Absolutely. And then just to end the unit here, we'll show you on slide number 35. It is the reflection questions. So there's an opportunity that you could either make these an individual reflection and then have them share out in small groups, or this could be something that would be an assignment that you would then give your paraeducators to finish and work with. And then the last slide is always a summary of what have we accomplished in terms of the fundamental course of study learning targets. So that's just a brief walkthrough of what you can look forward to in the fundamental course of study new curriculum that was created. And again, as Zoe said, we've tried to put together resources for you, but we do want you to customize and make this fit. We did create some kind of a template look. We did, when we worked with a lot of districts, we had a lot of different colors, different backgrounds, and everybody was doing their own graphic design work. So you can certainly do that, but we just kind of went through and created a simple visual so that it was clean and fresh for districts to be able to customize and plan and work towards what they would like to showcase as their own branding on that.
And of course, add in any graphics, any pictures that you think would be helpful. As Janelle said, we really tried to keep this bare bones so that districts would really be able to take it, download it, and customize it to their needs. So I just want to mention that the curriculum is located in our implementation resource folder, and it's also on our website. If you go to the district implementation section of the website, it's listed under training resources. So it's in those two places on our website and then on the implementation folder. So I just want to make sure that people know where to access it as well.
All right. Thank you both, Zoe and Janelle, for presenting on that. The only thing I'd like to add is that, yes, the intent here when we created it was for this to be in-person training, but of course we understand with COVID that makes things a little bit challenging. Districts are more than welcome to convert this into online learning. You will just have to do a little bit more in order to make sure that it is a successful online learning opportunity. Because we know there's a lot more that needs to go in. You can't just copy and paste things online and say, complete this, and you have good online learning. So we're just trying to say, you're more than welcome to use this. You're more than welcome to put this onto Moodle or Canvas or some other LMS. You'll just have to do a few more steps in order to make sure that it is good instruction. All right. So we would like to hear from you. We have a couple more slides, and then we're going to open it up for general questions. But right now, in the Q&A, and we will take 60 seconds, we would really love to hear from you about these two questions. First question, what do you believe will be your greatest challenge to implementing the fundamental course study next school year? And what could we do to help support you in the implementation of the program next school year? This will give us an opportunity to, one, update the Paraeducator board when they next meet. Two, prepare for the next legislative session. But also three, if there's anything that we're able to start implementing or considering now as we move into the next school year, this will give us a better idea of what we can do to help all of you moving forward when it comes to the implementation of this program. If you have any more thoughts, please do feel free to continue as we go through in the presentation to add them. And then, of course, emailing us at paraboard@k12.wa.us. We are interested in hearing your thoughts. So the final slide before we open everything up, we wanted to just let everyone know that we really welcome you to engage with us as we work on the Professional Educator Standards Board Strategic Plan. This is our 5-year strategic plan, and we're coming up to the end of our current 5-year plan, and we're working on the new one. And we really want to make sure that we hear from our community when it comes to the strategic plan that we're developing. Your voice is valued and your feedback is needed. So the Professional Educator Standards Board is identifying areas of opportunity, growth, and challenges in the career continuum of Washington educators. And we are asking, if you have the opportunity, please complete this online survey, which shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. And we would greatly appreciate your feedback. You can find it at bit.ly/PESBplan. That's PESBplan, lowercase. All right, and with that, thank you so much for being with us and listening to us. We have plenty of time to answer any kind of questions that you may have. If you do have any questions that we do not address either today, or if you think of any in the future, please email Zoe at paraboard@k12.wa.us. We are happy to answer them. You can also find this presentation and every link in this presentation by following the bit.ly account that's listed in the bottom there. That is 2LKKMC9. And please note that that is case sensitive. So that second K is lowercase and everything else is uppercase. And that will take you to the PowerPoint. Our toolkits and our FAQ document are always the most up-to-date documentation that we have when it comes to the Paraeducator Certificate Program. And we highly recommend checking it out regularly if you have any questions. We do not recommend downloading this yourselves onto your own desktop or printing it out, but trying to log in to the toolkit and FAQ because it is updated as we learn items, especially now, given the current situation with COVID and the legislature and how things are changing, it seems, every other month. So we do recommend checking out our toolkit and our FAQ. So with that, Zoe, if you're able to do it, because I'm sure you're still getting a lot of feedback from the questions, from the prompts that we provided, we're going to open it up to questions. And Janelle and Zoe, I welcome you to answer them along with me as we move on. So thank you so much. Zoe?
Thanks, Jack. The first question is around the requirement for next school year, when can trainings start for the next 14 hours? So that's the requirement for the 2021 school year.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Training can start for the next school year, July 1st of 2020. So after July 1st, or beginning July 1st and after, a district can go ahead and start providing training on the fundamental course of study the next 2 days that are required next school year.
Thanks, Jack. The next question is in regards to tracking. So who is responsible for tracking completed trainings? Is that on the paraeducator, the district, both?
So it's a bit of both. I would say that first and foremost, it is the district's responsibility to make sure to track the training that paraeducators are doing. Now, some districts are taking an approach of, here are the 3 days that we're going to provide the training, and if you have to show up, and we know what the targets we're hitting and the units that we're meeting, and so there, you have to show up. And if you don't show up, then we'll have to work with you. That can make things a little bit easier. Some districts are taking the approach of, like, let's say a catalog. Here's a bunch of training that we have. It is up to you, paraeducator, to go ahead and meet the different learning outcomes of these different units through this catalog approach, and then notify us of what you complete. That's one approach we've heard. And there's been a couple of different ones in the middle. In the end, though, it really is up to the district to make sure, since it's the responsibility of the district to make sure that paraeducators complete the training, to really do the tracking. Now, that said, now that paraeducators are following the clock hour system as other educators, they need to start also maintaining records of trainings that they have completed. So in essence, they are tracking the training that they have completed and thus the hours that they have completed. So both parties, the district and the paraeducator, should be tracking. But since the responsibility of completion is on the district, a greater responsibility lies on the district.
Thanks, Jack. Can you comment on the in-person requirement? Who has that authority? What is in-person defined as? I'm getting a lot of questions about that.
Sure. So the 7-hour in-person requirement was written into RCW by the legislature. They say that 7 hours must be completed in person in order to complete the fundamental course of study. The intent behind the law was for the 7 hours to be done face-to-face in the same room, because training with other paraeducators with a facilitator in person has been shown to be a more effective approach. Now, of course, because of COVID, many districts are asking, we would like to complete the fundamental course of study this school year, but there's this 7-hour in-person training requirement. What can we do? At the moment, the 7-hour in-person training requirement is staying in place. The 7-hour in-person training requirement does not need to be met until September 1st of 2021. There is no requirement that 7 hours must be done this school year in person. The requirement is that all paraeducators who are receiving training this school year on the fundamental course of study must meet that requirement by September 1st of 2021. Now, as we are still not sure how schools are going to be opening up again for the next school year, this rule may change depending on how schools do open up. So we will make sure to update the state if it changes and when it changes. But at the moment, the 7-hour in-person requirement is in place, and that means that must be in the same room, face-to-face training. Zoom and other software similar to Zoom does not count as in-person training at the current moment.
Thank you, Jack. What are the next steps after a paraeducator completes the 28 hours of the fundamental course of study?
Thank you, Zoe. Once the fundamental course of study is complete, there are currently no other requirements on the district or the paraeducator to do any other component of the paraeducator certificate program. If there is funding in the future for the general paraeducator certificate, then that will be a requirement that paraeducators must complete that training after the fundamental course of study is complete. So what to do now if a paraeducator completes the fundamental course of study? It is up to the district what step you would like to take next. Districts are more than welcome to provide or to assign training on ELL subject matter certificate, the special ed subject matter certificate, or different trainings to help meet the general paraeducator certificate. However, these trainings are not required by the state. It is optional on the district. If there is training and a district would like to move forward with that, we do welcome you to go ahead and consider completing the ELL and the special ed subject matter certificates, as they can be embedded into the general. We know many districts have taken the opportunity this school year, as many paraeducators are now at home seeking online training, to go ahead and use the ELL online training course that we have and the special ed online course that we have as well. In completing those courses, a paraeducator does meet the training requirements of the certificate. They will just have to complete the online fundamental courses study, the online clock hour form for the subject matter certificates. Do note that the fundamental course study must be complete before any certificate can be attained. For the general paraeducator certificate, we do recommend districts to look at any training that you may be providing right now to other educators, say teachers, and welcome your paraeducators to that training as well, because it will apply towards the general paraeducator certificate. So I guess to get back to the original question, what to do after the fundamental course study is complete, there is no requirement. But if a district would like to take advantage of all the training opportunities that are available, please do consider the subject matter certificates and the general paraeducator certificate as next steps.
Thanks, Jack. In relation to that, so you mentioned the 2 subject matter certificate online courses, ELL and special education, can be counted and embedded for the general certificate. Does PESB and the Paraeducator Board have any online courses for the general certificate outside of those 2?
So outside the ELL and the special ed, we do not have any. There are no other online courses that have been created by the Professional Educator Standards Board or the Paraeducator Board. There are many online courses that districts have contracted with for their educators, for teachers, that a district may consider providing to their paraeducators, examples being Safe Schools and Right Response. But I do know that there are many other trainings out there that a district may use if they want to. The only caveat, one more thing. The only caveat being that in order to complete clock hours for the general paraeducator certificate, it must be from PESB approved clock hour providers.
Thanks, Jack. One more question about that. Who is the clock hour provider for the online courses?
So the online courses, so let's phrase this a different way. In order to meet the requirements of the fundamental course study, the clock hours for the fundamental course study and the ELL and special ed subject matter certificates, these are activity-based clock hours. The clock hours, in essence, are being provided by the state, which is why we have these online trainings are available to paraeducators and for districts to use. So I guess the answer is the state is providing the clock hours for the completion of the ELL, the SPED, and the fundamental course study.
Thanks, Jack. For districts that have used or plan on using the online course, is the crosswalk going to be updated, and how can they use the curriculum to supplement that online work?
It will be updated, and Janelle, do you mind speaking more into that?
Sure. We created a new crosswalk that will show you what module from the What We Do Matters, and then what slides you could use to then finish off the full requirement of those fundamental course of studies. So you will be able to go in, assign all the What We Do Matters modules, and then go through and look at how you're going to supplement the What We Do Matters modules by the specific slides. So what we did is went in and said, this is the additional requirement to complete the fundamental course study unit. So it's got 3 columns, and it is all queued to the new curriculum of fundamental course of study. And I believe that, Zoe, that's going to be uploaded into the toolkit as well, correct?
Yes, it will be in the implementation resource folder.
Okay.
So if a district has not assigned a paraeducator to complete the optional subject matter certificate online courses, can a paraeducator complete them by themselves?
Definitely. A paraeducator can go ahead and complete the online course on them by themselves and meet the requirements that are in the course. Complete the form, the clock hour form. I do believe the clock hour form needs to be signed by someone in the district. It has been a while since I've looked at it, so I would just double check that. When it comes to completing the online courses, though, I highly recommend districts partner with your paraeducators to make sure that you know that they are working towards that. And that's because of how, and for the reason for that is because of how the subject matter certificates can be used to help meet the requirements of the general paraeducator certificate. So you will want to know what training your paraeducators are working towards. So I do highly recommend it be a partnership when it comes to any training that your paraeducators may be working on, and for you just to remain on top of it.
Thanks, Jack. Getting back to tracking, is there a mandated way school districts must track the completion of the fundamental course of study? Is there anything that the state requires for them to track, or how to track it?
Thanks, Zoe. The only requirement that we have when it comes to the fundamental course of study is to use the fundamental course of study clock hour form, which we have in our implementation folder. And you can also find that in the OSPI Certification Office website. That needs to be submitted in eCert when a paraeducator has completed the fundamental course of study. That form and notifying eCert are the two state requirements when it comes to tracking, broadly speaking. Otherwise, a district can do any kind of tracking method that they would like to implement. We have heard from districts who are using spreadsheets, Google Forms, I'm going to butcher the acronym, HRM Plus, I believe it's called, and a couple other softwares in order to track their paraeducators. It's highly dependent on what the district already has either purchased or implemented in their district. Every district is doing something a little bit different. So it's up to you and whatever you believe will be the best method moving forward to track.
To add to that, Jack, there is the PD Enroller that can be used to track also the training. And in your iGrants, you'll be requested to do some report out, especially in your how many of your paraeducators completed how many fundamental course of study units. So I think there's an opportunity to remember what dates you did your training on, who attended, and what units they completed. So those are really, some basics for how you want to keep some records to show, especially if there's an audit and the auditor asks to say, how are you tracking your paraeducators to complete the fundamental course of study? That might be a question from an auditor. You would want to certainly have some type of tracking, paper trail, whatever, that shows that yes, you did. They signed in, they attended that training, and they have completed those fundamental course study units.
Thank you for that addition, Janelle.
So for paraeducators that completed training before the SEL editions, are they required to complete the 13th module? What is the requirement there?
Thank you, Zoe. Really good question. So in looking at this, and I believe it was, February when this was put into WAC. When it was put into WAC, the rule is that if a district completed training on the unit that the SEL learning objective has fallen into, then the district is not responsible for going back and meeting that learning objective. If the district has not completed the unit, then they will, of course, have to add that SEL training in there into the training that you provide to your paraeducators. and I believe the date was early February, but I'm gonna have to double check that. So let's say February 1st, if you already completed the unit that has a certain SEL learning objective, then you're in the clear. If you had not, then you are responsible to make sure that that training is provided to your paraeducator. That's a good question. Thank you, Zoe.
Yes, we're getting some questions about the certificate fees. Can you speak a little bit about which components have certificate fees and the process of that, please?
Sure. So certificate fees. Every certificate has a certificate fee that's associated with it. The fundamental course of study does not have a fee associated with it. The fees are on the subject matter certificates, the general certificate, and the advanced paraeducator certificate. I believe the fee, I'll have to double check this. I believe the fee for the general paraeducator certificate is around $60. The fees for the subject matter certificates and the advanced are around $45. The fees are paid when a paraeducator seeks to attain the certificate through eCert. So there is no fee, unless a paraeducator requests the general paraeducator certificate or the subject matter certificates. This year or next, there are no fees that are assigned to the paraeducator. Zoe, how about we do 3 more questions and then we wrap things up?
Okay, great. A question about the curriculum. Can districts use part of the curriculum and not all of it? What does the customization process for districts look like? What do we recommend?
Sure. So I'll start and then Janelle, please chime in. When it comes to the fundamental course of study curriculum, this is completely optional. Districts are more than welcome to use all of it, some of it, or none of it. You can do as much customization as you want. All you have to do is download the material that we have on the Google folder. We have made it accessible for all. One of the things that I believe was Zoe or Janelle talked about was that we made sure to keep a very plain template in order for it to be easier to convert those templates into any template that you would like, and also to add any images that you would like as well. We know how important images are, but we chose not to use too many in order to keep it lightweight, the curriculum when you download it, and also for you to add your own flavor of images that you would like. Janelle, is there anything else you'd like to add?
So the other thing I would add is just to make sure that everybody knows the fundamental course of study syllabus, because those are your guiding learning outcomes. And in the crosswalk, we have shown where those specific learning outcomes are met with what slides. So you could use the crosswalk to also look through all the learning targets and go explicitly to ones that you want to cover with your district content, and then where the slides are that could pick up another learning outcome that you would like to use the slides for. So again, the guiding component is the fundamental course of study syllabus with those learning targets. And then all the rest of the materials are all coded and have been queued to those specific learning targets.
Yeah, I think that reminds me, Janelle, something that we have seen when we've been talking with different districts is that many districts have gone ahead and assigned the What We Do Matters online course without fully reviewing the fundamental course of study outline and syllabus and understanding what the learning objectives are. We highly recommend checking out the course outline, the standards, and especially the crosswalk. And that's because the What We Do Matters online course is, when it was developed, the fundamental course study outline had not been approved yet because the Paraeducator board had not been in existence. So the course came out ahead of all the learning objectives. Because of that, the way that the modules have been set up, it is not a one-to-one correlation, module 1 to unit 1. So we highly recommend districts review the crosswalk and the course outline in order to fully understand what the different learning objectives and the requirements are of the training, not to just assign the online course What We Do Matters if you choose to use it and to leave it at that, but to really review the course outline. So, Zoe, do we have another question?
Yes, thank you, Jack and Janelle. So just to be clear, the online course, Paraeducators, What We Do Matters, and the curriculum, are they optional? Are they mandatory? Does the curriculum replace the online course?
They're all optional. So the What We Do Matters will not meet all of the requirements of the fundamental course of study. It will not meet all the requirements. The curriculum, if facilitated by a trainer to paraeducators, will meet all of the learning requirements of the fundamental course of study. So we think it's much better training than the online course. Janelle, do you want to speak further on that?
Yeah, I think that everybody just needs to know that, again, you start with providing training to your paraeducators. You certainly can do the What We Do Matters modules, but then you need to go back in and make sure that you can utilize what's missing from those learning targets. And that's why that crosswalk is really important, to go back in and look for what's missing from the What We Do Matters modules so that you can obtain the completion. Because as we know, you must complete the 14 hours of training to get reimbursed for this year, and then again 14 clock hours next year to be able to complete and get your reimbursement. So again, the whole idea is you go back to the syllabus and look at those learning targets, and if you certainly want to create all your own curriculum based on that, you are welcome to do that. And again, you have to know the syllabus well to be able to complete and do an opportunity to make sure that all of your fundamental course of study learning targets are met.
Mm-hmm. But sorry, but again, the curriculum is completely optional. It was something that was sorry about that. It was something that was requested by school districts as a foundation to begin putting together the fundamental course of study training materials. So it is optional. It is just meant to be as a base the districts can then build off of. And again, the way it was developed, it is not to just give the slides to paraeducators in order to just click through, because that will not count. It needs to be used by a facilitator if you're going to use it the way that we have developed. Zoe, I think one last question, and then we're going to have to wrap things up.
Yes, thank you, Jack and Janelle. The last question is, can districts get reimbursed for a paraeducator that only completes 7 hours of training?
Thank you, Zoe. So a district will not be able to be reimbursed if a paraeducator only completes 7 hours of training. For this school year, and as things stand for next school year, a district will have to make sure that a paraeducator completes 14 hours, that's 2 days, 14 hours of training on the fundamental course of study, both this school year and next school year, in order to receive reimbursement for the training. Partial training cannot be reimbursed. Also, if a district chooses to provide more training this school year on the fundamental course of study, we are not able to reimburse for the additional hours. We are only able to reimburse for 14 hours, and you're only able to receive reimbursement if you complete the 14 hours. So with that, thank you so much, Zoe, for facilitating through all those questions, and thank you for presenting as well. Janelle, thank you for being a co-presenter. And for our audience, thank you for being here. We really appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak with you and present on some updates for the Paraeducator Certificate Program. And we are also really excited to be able to present on the Fundamental Course of Study curriculum. A big thank you to Janelle, and the biggest thank you to Zoe for helping putting all that material together. And of course, to our district partners in your help in putting the slides and the curriculum and the suggested material, anyone who submitted material to us, and for our work group who came together, a big thank you to you as well. So with that, we are going to sign off. If you do have any questions, either that we did not get to today or that you think about in the future, please do email paraboard@k12.wa.us, and we will be happy to answer them. And with that, thank you so much.